This episode and every episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show is brought to you by Ironmonger Brewing. Visit Ironmonger at their tap room in Marietta, Georgia, or online at ironmongerbrewing.com.
Open up a tab, grab a seat, and pour a pint. It's time for the Beer Guys Radio Show.
You want free beer? Go to the brewery.
Dedicated to the art, science, and enjoyment of craft beer.
Yeah, what's wrong with the beer we got?
Now, here are your hosts, Tim Dennis and Brian Hewitt.
And welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We are broadcasting on location today at Apotheos Roastery in Kennesaw, Georgia. This week we're going to be talking coffee and beer and probably some about coffee beers. So I am Tim Dennis, and with me as always is my good friend and co-host, Brian Hewitt.
I've never been more excited, Tim. How you doing?
I know, right?
So joining us today, we have Adam Silverberg, the owner of Apotheos Roastery. We've got Dale Hughes coming up. He's the CEO of Everyday People Group. We've got Jason White, the roaster for Apotheos Roastery. And like you said, we're going to talk about coffee and coffee beers, and those are two of my very favorite things.
Brian has been wanting this show forever. Adam, thank you. You've made Brian's dreams come true.
You have.
It's your morning beverage and your evening beverage all in one.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
It's an all-day beverage for me. Yeah.
Yep. Then when you add it to beer, it's just 24/7. You can have coffee in your life. Absolutely.
An IV dripping while I sleep. I got a CPAP that in the reservoir, there's coffee in there. Coffee beer sometimes.
You're just going to start chewing the beans whole soon. I think your next step, right?
You mean you don't already? I mean, that's...
Well, they do sell them as candy, dark chocolate-covered espresso beans.
Sounds
they're
delicious.
Good to go, man.
They are delicious.
Do you sell those here? You've
No.
got plenty of beans. Just dip them in some chocolate. Boom.
I mean, we can play around later.
Yeah.
We got a lot of beans sitting
Heck
out
yeah.
there.
You know what? We do have a nice tray of pastries here that you brought from. It's actually a bakery in your company, right? Gabriel's
That's correct.
Bakery.
Gabriel's in Marietta.
And I just had a very delicious cheesecake tart with a chocolate on it there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we got some goodies over
See,
there.
now you know what? I would seriously put a few coffee beans on top of that, and I bet that would be pretty darn good. We may have to experiment here, right?
We got a lot of things to experiment with.
Yeah.
We do. We've actually started. We did a little pre-gaming. We drank one of our favorite coffee beers, Brian, from Carton Brewing.
Yeah.
The regular coffee we had. We're currently sipping one from Arches Brewing. And Brian, I didn't catch the name on this one.
That's
Southside Grind?
Southside Grind, yeah. It's a coffee lager. Yeah.
And we've got one here on the table, Loving Cup from Monday Night Brewing, which I really thought that I would not like because it sounds weird, but it is a white mocha milkshake IPA.
Look at that.
Okay.
Right? So it sounds absolutely crazy there.
It
It does sound crazy.
Yeah, it's a pretty intense thing, and it's a surprising thing. But
It's surprising. I was surprised how much I like that one, so I'm looking forward to getting back into that. Adam, how's your week been going, man? What's new and exciting?
Well, the sun's shining here in Kennesaw for the first time in a while. Things are going good, man. Things are moving along despite what the world might be doing around us. We're having a good time here in Kennesaw.
Got to do what you can.
That's right.
Jason, exciting week for you?
It's always an exciting week for me.
Always, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
There's
just follow along and do what you can. Huh?
There's always coffee to roast.
Yeah, good stuff. It
Jason's
smells great in
responsible.
here.
Yeah, he's responsible for making the entire city of Kennesaw smell like coffee multiple times every week.
Mm-hmm.
they should be thanking
That's
you
the way
for
you
that.
do
I
it.
hope they do.
Yeah, the police have shown up once already.
Yeah. To thank you or for some other reason?
They thought the building was on fire.
It's like, no, we're just roasting coffee. The Willy Wonka of Kennesaw.
So I've never roasted coffee myself, but I assume it's a pretty pungent aroma when you get it going, right?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Okay.
I mean, people make comments all the time about how wonderful it smells outside, and it draws them to the building. And then once they're inside, they can't stop talking about how wonderful it smells inside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you guys sell air fresheners? You need some of that intense coffee air freshener thing going on. Just dunk it. And
Yeah, I'm wearing it right now.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yep.
I
That's
found
called cologne, I think.
a lot of people, like our sound guy, No Mike Nate, he loves the smell of coffee, but does not like the taste.
You see that?
And I've seen a handful of people that are like that. They're like, they absolutely love it. I did. In a previous life, I worked with an inventory service, and when we would do the grocery stores, we'd go down the coffee aisle, and there were a few people there that's like, man, I always love doing the inventory on the coffee aisle because it smells so good, but coffee is just nasty. And I'm like, you're so wrong, so horribly wrong.
I don't call those things
You don't
people.
call them
I don't.
people?
I don't know if they qualify as people. You don't like coffee.
They came
What's
around
wrong with
coffee
you?
wrong. Somebody handed them a cup from somewhere they
Genetically
shouldn't have.
different, possibly inferior. I don't know. I don't know what they are.
Inferior.
Subspecies of some kind. I don't know. I don't know what the category is.
Brian is really on a roll today. He's harsh today.
I
man.
am
You
on
start
my-
talking bad. I don't see him getting this upset when people talk bad about beer.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
I think we're seeing where his first love
I mean,
is.
this
here.
is primary. I mean, I don't understand it at all. I think we evolved together, coffee and people. Like,
Is this a love affair, Brian? Are we seeing
it's a passion. It's a lifestyle. It's
Okay.
everything, Tim. Yeah.
good stuff?
So we're in the right thing. Tim, let's get into the beers of the week.
Now it's time for our Beers of the Week. Brought to you by The Nest, craft beer and barbecue in downtown Kennesaw, Georgia. TheNestKennesaw.com.
Well, Brian, as always, we've just got a crazy list of beer. I think actually this week's list may be even crazier, you know?
Yes.
And I want to thank our friends at The Nest for sponsoring this segment. We really appreciate that. They've got their anniversary. You've got your anniversary coming up.
A week from today.
Yeah. And as we've said a few times on the show, we're going to have some whole smoked alligator there. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So that's going to be a good time.
Gator actually going to have some live music for the first time in a while.
I thought you were about to say live gators, and I was like, I'm
can.
kind of
It's
excited about that, too.
We're going to feed them coffee first.
There we go. Good times. Well, on the beer list, we've already mentioned a couple. I've got too many to mention here, but a couple others we're going to get into. We have some 2017 Founders KBS, 2020 Founders CBS. We have Allagash Barrel and Bean. One that we've just cracked into is the Monday Night Loving Cup, that IPA. One I'm really excited for. Our friends at Ironmonger and our friends here at Apotheos have collaborated on a beer. It's not named yet, but we've come up with a couple names. It's their Meeseeks Porter with Apotheos coffee.
Right.
And it's either going to be coffee Meeseeks, or Brian said Meeseeks coffee.
I mean,
which is very primal.
Exactly. It has to be that.
We're only scratching the surface what we
get
can
into
do
that,
there.
right?
So, yeah.
And then carried over from last week's show, we have some microphone, some of their Smells Like Bean Spirit, a little Duclaw Sweet Baby Java, and many other beers to get into. So we're going to have no shortage of caffeine in our systems today, Brian.
I'm just going to be vibrating so hard that the building is going to shake. Yeah.
Remember Beavis and Butthead when he went cornholio mode?
I'm going to be full cornholio.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, Brian, what's happening this week in the news?
What's in the news? The beer guys have the scoop.
Extra, read all about it.
Time for headlines.
All right, so I don't follow coffee news that closely, but this week I saw an article about a high percentage of Hawaiian competition-winning coffee lots using controlled fermentation as part of their post-production process, which I assume means that it took place while the beans were still in the cherries. From what I read, the fermentation was actually done by yeast that typically ferments wine, and those varieties were chosen to enhance the acidity and fruit flavors of the coffee beans, which kind of sounds like my jam in terms of coffee. I honestly don't know enough about coffee production to know if what I read was like a very serious article or more of an advertisement for their coffee, because they were selling some coffee. But I'm intrigued at the idea of fermenting coffee beans is part of the process. Do you guys, is that something you guys have looked into at all or know anything about? Or
we actually have one bean in stock right now that is a fermented bean, Monsoon Malabar.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is the cherries themselves that are fermented with some yeast that like naturally occurring, or
no? This specific bean is done after the pulp is taken off the cherry itself. So they basically laid it in a big sandbox during the monsoon season and let it ferment just up until the point of right before it starts to mold, and then they wash it off and they end up with a product that tastes really good.
Wow, well, that sounds exciting. Okay, moving on. He's doing it again, folks. The man, the myth, the legend, Del Hall is going on a beer-only diet for Lent again this year. This is his third year in a row of doing it, and I think I have lovingly mentioned it every single time in the news segment that he has done it. This year, one of the goals is to raise money for local businesses affected by the pandemic, though through his Sergeant Del's virtual tip jar GoFundMe account. His other goal, if you can believe it, is to lose weight and lower his cholesterol, which he has succeeded in doing every single time he's done this. I should mention that Del is the co-owner of 16 Lots Brewery in Mason, Ohio. And so drinking beer charitably all day long while losing weight, this is real men of genius material, Tim. It's fantastic.
It is.
Yeah.
It sounds gimmicky. It sounds like just a lie is what it sounds like.
It does sound like a lie, but it's been so widely reported, and people, I think they're watching him closely to make sure he doesn't eat. And you know what? You can do it. Monks used to do this, actually. Yeah.
You should try that one year, Brian.
I like the idea. I'm not sure I could pull that off. I know I might be murdered at home, and I'm not sure what the job situation would look like with that. So big changes in big beer. Heineken is cutting 8,000 jobs as part of their plan to, quote, move beyond beer. According to their recent earnings statement, they are looking to reduce their total global workforce by 10% in an attempt to save $2.4 billion in this year as they go over a 2-year overhaul process to get into. They're really moving towards non-alcoholic beers and hard seltzers because they had a lot of losses in the past year, and the thing that really took off for them was the non-alcoholic, the Heineken 0.0. It's the one thing that did well for them in the past year.
Man, the 8,000 jobs, that's a lot of jobs to cut. That's a big cut there.
And the fact that they are moving beyond beer, Heineken is a beer company.
I wonder how many people are left.
Yeah, well, there's going to be 3 people. There's going to be a considerable amount. They are very large.
Yeah. You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take a break, but we'll be back very soon to talk more with Apotheos Roastery.
Craft beer deserves craft glass. Thick Boys Glass has curated an online collective of glass artisans around the USA to bring you hand-blown beer glassware. These unique glasses are stylish and durable and have plenty of room to hold a tall boy of your favorite beer. Use code BeerGuys at thickboysglass.com to get 15% off your order. Thick Boys Glass, that's THICCBOIS glass.com.
Cobb County, Georgia is home to 17 unique craft beverage makers. This March, Cobb Travel and Tourism and Fireside Natural Gas bring you Bubbles and Brews Craft Beverage Month. Visit participating locations to get your Brew Pass passport and sample the featured brews. Make sure to get your Brew Pass stamped and cast your vote for your favorites and a chance to win sweet prizes all month long. Celebrate with Cobb's best craft beverage makers throughout the month of March. Get more info now at bubblesandbrews.com.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Next Friday is Hawaiian Shirt Day. So, if you want to, go ahead and wear a Hawaiian shirt and jeans.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Remember, all episodes are available on demand, so if you missed the broadcast, get the podcast. Beer Guys Radio is available on all popular and unpopular podcasting apps. Now let's get back to coffee and beer with Apotheos.
Mr. Dale Hughes has joined us here at the table. Dale, you are the chief dreamer of Everyday People Group, correct?
Absolutely. It's what I do all day.
Man, that sounds like a great title. Sounds like a great job.
Just think about it. Drink coffee, walk down to the nest, drink a little beer, and dream.
Have some barbecue, maybe some nachos and coffee, beer.
Smoked chicken egg rolls.
That sounds like a racket, if you ask me.
It
doesn't
kind of
sound
does.
like work as much.
Don't tell my wife, okay?
Okay, we'll keep it silent. But Dale, you joined us. We want to talk a little bit about the history of coffee, kind of the origins of coffee itself, as well as cold brew, how that kind of came in. So how did us drinking coffee get started?
You got to go back to 850 A.D. And there's a guy named Caldy. He's a goat herder, and he's sitting out there, and he's watching his goats, and they start dancing. And he's like, man, what's up with my goats? They're having a good day. And he's like, what are they doing? He watches them. They're over eating some berries off these bushes. He says, what is it with these berries that are making my goats so happy? So he goes down to the monastery, and he tells the monks, he says, hey, y'all know anything about these berries over here on these bushes that my goats are eating? They're making them dance. So obviously Dancing Goats Coffee in Atlanta,
right.
Caldy Coffee, all of these. So the monks say, hey, this is of the devil. You don't need to be dealing with this. They take the coffee beans, they throw them into the fire. Guess what happens?
They get roasting coffee, man.
They're roasting coffee, and this smell is there, and they're like, whoa, this smell is pretty good. Let's see what it tastes like. So they start drinking it, and they say, you know what, we like this. And actually they realize the caffeine effect at that point, and that's keeping them awake. Well, what's it keeping them awake for? Because when you fall asleep, when you do the prayers all night, right?
That's a key.
So now they can do their prayers, and they can stay awake. So this takes off now. And it's going through the peninsula, the Arabian Peninsula, because it started in Ethiopia. So the next thing we know, it's in Mecca. And as all the pilgrims are going to Mecca, they start drinking this, and all of a sudden you start having coffee houses, which become social clubs, a lot like our beer taverns now. And in these social clubs, they're drinking coffee, they're having music, they're playing chess, they're in enlightenment clubs. They're called schools of wisdom.
Everybody wired up there.
Wired up and espousing their views. Chief dreamers. So just think of a
man.
coffee house with a bunch of chief dreamers.
Yeah. That's why they came up with all the advanced mathematics, calculus, or what was the thing?
I thought you were going to say
You're the one that went this way.
Algebra,
because they were sitting in coffee shops and suddenly they're thinking math and they're all wired up. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Coffee probably is why we know math now. That's my guess.
Is that what you were going to say? Now.
I was absolutely going to say that. So
okay.
What do you think happens next? The Europeans show up. They're like, what is this? Let's take it back. So it hits Europe, especially in the Dutch, Scandinavian countries, and all of a sudden they have what's known as penny universities. You know what a penny university is?
No.
Definitely not the universities we have today.
They're a lot more than a penny.
No, they don't even have to bail you out on the loans at these. But they have these penny universities, which are their coffee houses, their social clubs, because a cup of coffee costs a penny. And let me tell you, too, they've gone through errors as they create these coffee clubs. And it happened in Istanbul, Constantinople, it happened in Mecca, where because there's so many enlightened people in these coffee houses, they become revolutionaries and they create things that the people in power don't like. So you go through periods where coffee houses are banned. We hit Europe, we have the penny universities, we go through periods where they're banned, but all of a sudden it's spreading through Europe and they're being banned, and then sometimes they're not being banned, so they decide we're going to make this a religious issue.
Coffee becomes a religious issue.
Becomes a religious issue.
Okay.
And they go and they tell Pope Clementine, this stuff is bad. You got to issue an edict that we can't drink it anymore. Well, the other thing, too, probably some of the beer guys were involved, and here's why I want to tell you that. Because by this point, coffee has replaced beer and wine as your breakfast drink.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Because, you stay a little bit sharper with the caffeine, you're more productive during the day, so probably the beer and wine guys are, in the ear of the Pope. They tell the Pope, you got to ban coffee. You got to say that this can't be the drink anymore. So the Pope says, well, before I ban something, I got to drink it.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. He drinks it. He loves it. He says, we are not banning this. This is a great drink. So all of a sudden, it's getting on the ships. It comes into the colonies. The colonies love it, but we love tea more than we love coffee.
That's what I was going to say.
We love tea more than we love coffee, so we won't replace it until, guess what happens?
Boston Tea Party, maybe?
Yeah, man.
That was it.
Boston Tea Party. So all of a sudden, it's unpatriotic to drink tea. So what are we going to drink?
We're drinking coffee.
So guess what? Coffee becomes the drink of the mornings in the colonies. So now the Dutch traders are going all over the world. They're taking coffee with them. They love it. It ends up in Japan, okay? And in Japan, because that's such a long trip from the Dutch and the Scandinavian countries, they had to figure out how to make a concentrate to get it there, because you don't want to be roasting this on your ship. You'll burn the ship down when you're out in the ocean. So they got these concentrates. Well, they get over to the Kyoto region of Japan, and the Japanese say, and this is about 1640 in the 1600s, they say, hey, here's a cold method to brew this. And with a cold method as opposed to a hot method, you can reduce the amount of release of the amino acids or the fatty acids. So like as I drink this coffee right now with you that I have, this is a hot brew method. There's a little more amino acid, fatty acid released in it, which creates the acidity, which creates what you call the bite. But with that cold brew, I can reduce that because it's not releasing those fatty acids, so the bite's not there, the acidity's not there. And the other difference between that cold brew drink and this hot is this is a 13 parts coffee, 1 part water. That cold brew is a 1 part water, 1 part coffee. Or some people, when they don't do it right, do it at a 4-to-1. And that's a shout out to my friends at Starbucks.
Okay.
But
so at 1-to-1 is the right is
1-to-1 is what you got to do.
Okay.
You got to hit it there. You get that robust flavor. But you're going to get a lot more caffeine because now you're not diluting it, the water.
Yeah.
Think good whiskeys, think good alcoholic drinks where you're not diluting.
Now, if I do cold brew like a concentrate like that, and I want to turn it into a hot cup in the morning, how long will that keep? Like if I do a cold brew concentrate and keep it in my refrigerator, how long can I keep that and still keep it tasting good?
You're not sealed on that, so I don't know the perfect answer. But ours in that sealed can right there, I feel comfortable up to 180 days. I want you to drink it in that 90, but I feel very comfortable. We will typically, you can see there's a Best By on here. We'll typically throw down a 90-day Best By from the date we have brewed it and canned it. We also put nitrogen in it, which gives that creamy head that you might have noticed when you mixed it with beer a little while ago.
Right.
Sure, yeah.
And I saw you mix it with whiskey, but that's okay. Some people like that.
Well, I
Do what you got to do.
I'm not going to deny
he's
it.
1/10 Irish.
Yeah,
so that's it. Yeah.
That's the 10th that's here right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I know cold brew is a popular way of putting coffee in beers as well. So some will do a cold brew concentrate and add it like that. Some of the brewers kind of cold brew directly in the beer. Whether they take the whole beans or they crack the beans. We talked to one brewer recently that puts it and basically recirculates over the coffee beans until they get the desired, flavor that they want there. But Adam, I know you were saying that you talked to some other brewers that may just add, regular brewed coffee or whatever. There's a large variety of different ways to add it into your beer, right?
Yeah, a lot of brewers struggle with the coffee overpowering all the other flavors in there. I mean, coffee is a very potent flavor. So some of them do like to just take our liquid coffee and just add it towards the end of their process just to get a little bit of hint of coffee at the end there. I don't know much about the cracking process. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I've heard some say they just, rather than a full grind, they just kind of open the beans up, basically. Yeah. And we talked, if you heard our show last week with Microphone Brewing, we talked to them about the proper roasting technique because beer can get a green pepper note in it from coffee.
Sure.
And so, he's talking about how he has the beans roasted, got to him right away. He grinds them what do you say, 10 minutes or less before it's going into the beer?
Something like that.
Because he wants to make sure it gets in there fresh. Make sure you extract at the right temperature, kind of like you were talking about, Dale, to keep some of those different compounds down. But I like a beer that's got a bold coffee note in it.
I do as well.
But I don't like bitterness in coffee.
Right.
So I want smooth, really deep, really rich, but smooth.
Coffee's not supposed to be bitter.
Yeah.
It's
See
not
that?
supposed to be.
And I personally am not a fan of acidic coffees either.
I kind of like them, though. Well, you can't get some of your brighter, fruitier flavors in some cases without
coffee.
a certain
It's
amount
not
of
supposed to
acid.
taste like fruit,
but
Brian.
it can. It can be wonderful. I'm at a table with people who do not like light roast. This much I know, so I'm outnumbered at this point. But
Any coffee
you can get some
that's-
great flavor out of it.
If anything is described as bright, acidic, floral, fruity on a coffee bag, I'm going to move on to the next bag of coffee.
It depends on the other flavor descriptors. I've found some that I think are just cop-outs for, well, this isn't actually a very good coffee. And some of them are like, oh, that one will probably be good.
I think Dale was telling us earlier that light roasts are actually for children and babies and infants. Is that
I
right,
absolutely was telling you that.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
You
Yeah.
got to go robust.
I do enjoy the other roast levels, and I am a sucker for any roast level that delivers me a nice, like, berry flavor. I love a berry flavor in coffee, which is not something people usually think about, but yeah.
Good stuff. Well, you're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take another break, but we'll be back very soon with more from Apotheos Roastery.
Looking for great craft beer to enjoy at home? Get your beer to go at the Nest in Kennesaw, Georgia. Choose from their 48 taps to enjoy there with some tasty barbecue and take some home with you for later. Grab a crispy Pilsner, a nice tart sour, or a bold stout to sit by the fire. Just bring your growler in and choose a favorite or two to take with you. It's our beer, your growler at the Nest for your brews to go. Check out the beer and food menus before you visit at thenestkennesaw.com.
Craft beer forged with a reverence for tradition and new styles that start a revolution. Ironmonger Brewing. The brewers at Ironmonger Brewing pride themselves at being masters of barrel-aged, hoppy, and sour beers. They invite you to their tap room in Marietta, Georgia to taste and see. Also visit their barrel room for an intimate drinking experience with great live entertainment. Keep up to date on all things Ironmonger by liking them on Facebook. Ironmonger Brewing, establishing a new standard in craft beer.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Shake it back!
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. I want to give a quick shout out to one of our great radio affiliates, WQEE 99 Rock the Key in Noonan, Georgia. Catch Beer Guys Radio on WQEE every Saturday at 10 a.m. Now let's get back to Coffee, 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 Beer, Beer, Beer with Apotheos.
That's a heck of a name, Brian.
That's exactly what the show is called.
Do you add a coffee to it each segment after you've had more coffee?
I'm thinking I might do that.
Happen.
Yeah,
that might happen. Well, guys, we've talked some about the history of coffee, and now we want to talk kind of the flavors in coffee, styles of beer that pairs well with, and why. Kind of looking at that. So, Jason, coffee, you can get a lot of flavors in it, like we were talking earlier about bright, acidic, dark in that. Does the roast change the flavor?
Absolutely.
Of the coffee?
Absolutely. So when you're dealing with, say, a medium roast, flavors that tend to come out more in a medium roast would be floral, nutty, fruity. And then whenever you move into the darker realms, some fruit notes will transition over, but you're looking at more earth notes that are present in those coffees. More molasses.
Would you get smokiness too at that level? Is that kind of a darker roast thing?
Some, yes, but
or is that a bad sign? Does that mean they over roasted the coffee?
There's some different reasons behind that. It could be that maybe the airflow out of the roaster wasn't appropriate, and
it was an inappropriate airflow.
Inappropriate airflow. Well, you know what that brings in to me personally? Starbucks coffee always tastes burnt, and I'm not a fan. I know they're huge. People absolutely love them. Is that popular? I mean, are they? What's your opinion, Jason? Are they going too far with the roast? Is that just their style?
It is definitely part of their style. And I think that as far as Starbucks is concerned, they've created a brand for themselves with the way that there's not a single person that I haven't talked to about Starbucks that doesn't make the correlation that is Starbucks. So is it right or wrong? I don't necessarily
I have found out that if you get it in something like a latte or a cappuccino in that, and maybe that's the point. Maybe they're brewing to, at least an Americano or something like that.
Coffee-flavored sugar water? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, that's right, yeah. Triple shot, no foam,
If you put
soy.
enough whipped cream into it, like a ratio of 40-1, it actually doesn't taste burnt at all. So is that is that smoky, burnt flavor, does that have more to do with is that the region of coffee, or is that really just the process to get it to that point?
Considering I don't really know their process for how they're actually roasting the coffee, I can't speak in specifics, but I can make some guesses, and I would probably say a lot of it has to do with their overall roasting process.
Okay.
Probably not so much to do with the actual beans that they're using.
Because I'd heard back in the day, early coffee days for me, that there were some beans that were known for having smoking quality, and I'm thinking maybe that was just how they roasted that particular bean. I thought it was regional though for a while, but you're saying not really.
Not in my experience. No.
Okay. All right. No, fair enough. Again, that's probably going back to the 90s where everything was very Starbucksy and very heavily roasted. Everything was dark roast.
Yeah. So whenever we talk about dark roast here at Apotheos, our standard for doing dark roast is we like to take it right to the point before the oils start to extract to the outside of the bean. So Starbucks is way past the point of that.
Oh, yes, for sure.
So, their beans are super oily. We don't like our dark roast to be super oily. So that's the smokiness is coming from burning off the oils, and that mixes into the bean.
Okay.
So, and if you don't have a proper airflow and you're not pulling that out, you end up with a not so clean tasting cup.
He's being so democratic here in the way he's talking about this.
Diplomatic, I think.
Diplomatic.
And possibly democratic. We're all voting on this
Republican,
later.
Democratic, whatever. We love everybody. So when looking at that, we talked some about the beer styles that are favorable to having coffee added to them. And really, as we've seen here, we're currently drinking an Allagash Barrel and Bean, which is a Belgian triple with coffee in there.
Aged on coffee beans.
Coffee beans. We've had a cream ale. We've, of course, done a porter. We had the Ironmonger Apotheos collaboration, the coffee Meeseeks or Meeseeks coffee, which is really good. Founders, of course, does a lot. A breakfast stout. I think when people think coffee and beer, that's probably one of the first ones.
It is.
That comes to mind. Even an IPA, which, like I said, I did not expect to like that and ended up really liking it. Brian, I'll ask you, man, is there a style that you tried, since you're the coffee junkie, that you think just as a blanket statement does not work well with coffee?
So I would have said at one point in time IPAs, because I, for a long time, didn't have a good one. I think Monday Night did Bedhead back in the day, and that was the first time it worked out well. And the one we had that was a milkshake coffee IPA worked out really well. I've had only a few coffee saisons. I've yet to have one that I really enjoyed. It seems interesting to me. It seems like that's something that should be able to be worked out, but I've yet to see anybody do that. And I'm going to just say that if it's got pumpkin in it, I'm not interested anyway. So
pumpkin
that
coffee
may work or may not work, but I'm not going to be drinking a pumpkin latte beer.
Orpheus Brewing here in Atlanta did a coffee sour.
Oh, yeah.
And that one I know from hearing people talk about it online. It was the house was divided. A lot of people were like, hey, I really like that. But the people that didn't like it very strongly did not like it.
That's the problem with something bold.
Yeah. And a coffee sour, you think about that. That's something that, interesting there.
I mean, the coffee bean is going to be such a good, traveler of any other flavor you want to add to it. But most people are going to think chocolate, think, that dark, rich stuff. So you see the porters, you see the stouts. But what we're looking for is the summertime coffee drink. Summertime coffee beer drink.
What is a summertime coffee beer to you?
I'm actually pretty impressed with how this Meeseeks Porter did with the Adventurer and how light of a drink it made it and still had a nice bold coffee flavor. I think there was work to be done on the Saison route. I think that's what we're going to see soon, is some sort of coffee Saison. It's got a coffee flavor and that lightness, that sort of crushability that some of the Saisons have. That's what I want to see, at least. We'll see what happens.
One that I don't think we have represented today is a coffee brown ale. I think brown ales, as a generality, are not that exciting on their own, but they're a great canvas to bring other flavors in there, to bring a vanilla brown ale, a coffee brown ale. Brian, we did a hazelnut brown ale one time when we were home brewing. It was really, really nice.
It was really good. And a coconut, yeah.
But the coffee brown ales can be really nice.
Actually, we do. I think I've got an old bottle of Frangelic Mountain Brown. So
okay, we do have one.
I hoard all of the coffee beers that I come across, and that one I especially love. When we had Kosmicki on the show, I was asking him specifically when we would see that again, and he delivered shortly thereafter. I'm going to take credit.
Coffee.
I'm taking credit for that coming back for the time that it did. So that was wonderful. And I agree with you. Brown it really makes a lot of sense. I think porter, or people think stout. I'm surprised people don't automatically go to brown. Brown seems like that's the perfect canvas for beer.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
for
coffee.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Jason, let's talk some about roasting coffee. We've kind of talked about kind of what becomes of that, but what's the process for roasting a coffee? And do you make different decisions based on the coffee that you're using as to how you're going to roast that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Every green bean has their own innate flavor profile. And my job as the roaster is to know what those potential flavor notes are, and then through the roasting process, create a profile that extracts some of those flavors out from the bean. And if I can do that, then job well done.
Do you know beans well enough now to where it's is it still trial and error? Let's say you get a new bean in, you're like, well, I think this is going to be good roasted like this. Do you always hit it there? Is there a formula?
So we do have a method for how we roast coffee, and that's what makes our coffee taste the way that it does. I was taught by my boss, Doug Bond, on how to roast through an apprenticeship style teaching, and I would call it educated guess.
Okay.
So
sure. That's yeah.
It's similar to other beans you've had. How long, out of curiosity, because I've never actually done it myself, how long does it take to roast a batch of coffee?
It depends on what you're roasting, but we can say somewhere around like 13 and a half minutes.
Oh, really?
Oh,
it's
that's
really
a lot
fast.
faster than I thought. Okay.
I figured this was like a slow and low for a long time.
No, that's barbecue. That's the other build.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried slow roasting coffee beans? I'm just saying, take you some down there to the nest and put them on the smoker, see what you come up.
We've certainly used it in a rub before.
Okay. Coffee rub.
That does make a lot of sense.
For the barbecue or just like maybe at home on a Saturday?
Those were pork chops. So
okay. Yeah. All right.
Why not both, good. Tim? Why not?
That's right. Do what you want to do there. Absolutely.
I don't know if we've got time for it just yet, but I really want to get into what you can do with the coffee before you roast it, if anything, that you might be doing.
Good question.
Yeah, a little tinkering with it that you might be able to do before you put that in the roaster.
Well, Brian, that'll be a tease for our next segment. We'll talk about that a little bit. All right. We do need to take a break. You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We'll be back with more from Apotheos Roastery right after this. It's Brian and Tim, the Beer Guys. If you're like us, no lunch or dinner is complete without a pint or two of craft beer.
Which is why Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth are always on our list. Tim, why do they call it Truck and Tap?
Well, the tap part is easy, Brian. They've got 18 of them.
As for the truck part, that's where it gets interesting. Truck and Tap features your favorite Atlanta area food trucks, so you're getting a different menu every day.
Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth.
Truckandtap.com. Let them know that the Beer Guys sent you.
Have you ever thought about owning your own brewery but don't know what it takes to get one built? We're Storytime Construction, and we build breweries. We're Georgia's most experienced and hands-on contractors when it comes to building new breweries and tap rooms, or expanding existing breweries. We offer full build-outs, remodeling, and additions, as well as consulting and construction management. Give us a call at 770-733-4343. Storytime Construction. We build breweries.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/beerguys. Patrons get cool perks like Beer Guys swag and commercial-free episodes. Now let's get back to coffee and beer with Apotheos.
So, Jason, as we went out of the last segment, Brian had a question that we had to hold off here. So, Brian, I believe you'd asked, is there anything you can do to the green coffee beans prior to roasting?
Yeah, any kind of interesting tricks you can do. And I'll just leave that open-ended and see where it goes from there. So, what say you?
Fermentation is popular. Also, I think we were talking about over our break.
Barrel
age. That's something that we've talked about experimenting with our cold brew. Typically, most of the coffees that we do get are they need to be able to be pulled in year round. So we typically don't get super extravagant processed coffees that are only out there seasonally, just because we need to be able to provide on a yearly scale to all of our customers the same product. So
you need some consistency.
Now with that question though, we know in beer, small batch one-offs and all of that are popular. Is that the same for coffee, or are people more dedicated to a specific coffee?
Yeah, I mean, everybody always has their favorite, right?
Sure.
I'm sure you guys have a coffee that you remember that's nostalgic, that just you're like, man, that's the best coffee I ever had. And every time you think about it, it's awesome. That's what we're trying to provide for our customers through our branding. So
okay. And speaking of that, talking about Apotheos Roastery. So again, thanks for hosting us, Adam. We really appreciate it. Good time here. I don't think I've had this much caffeine in my system in a long time.
Since the last time you hung out with me.
That's right. Yeah, we'll make it happen. But you guys actually do a subscription service now. Is that correct?
We do. And, there's a lot of crossover here between the craft beer community and the craft coffee community. And we like to have a lot of fun here with what's new out there. We have the Alchemy series, which is only available through our subscription service. That's at apotheosroastery.com. And you get access to our fun and exciting new roast before anybody else does. It's a great way to make sure you never run out of coffee as well.
Okay.
We'll have it
so there are new
delivered.
things. It's not just we do these 4 roasts. You do have new stuff through your Alchemy series. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right.
But our flagship coffees that are here year round.
Flagship. It's flagship February, so it's a good time.
There you go.
Is that a real thing? Flagship?
Yes.
Another thing that we actually talked a little bit about in the break, and I thought was fascinating, because I've heard about it, but I didn't know this about it. Kopi Luwak, people that the Civet Cat, the cat crap coffee. What is the deal with that? And I've seen that in beer too, and they make a big deal about it. It's very expensive. What's the story behind that?
Is this a Beer Guys Radio first to talk about
Kopi
cat?
Luwak?
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah. We have talked Kopi Luwak before.
I think we have, yeah.
Okay. Well.
But let's dive into But I think we may have new information here.
That's what I'm hearing.
That specific animal is really good at its sense of smell when it comes to picking out the ripest bean, is far superior to anything us humans can do. So it picks all of the ripest fruits. So everything that comes out of that animal is then used to brew what is considered the most superior cup.
Okay, because I know that the rumor, and I think it's been in movies and stuff before, they talk about the digestive enzymes playing in. That's BS, right? It's all about bean selection here.
Bean selection is everything.
How desperate do you have to be for a cup of coffee to decide to pick it up out of a pile of cat? Could they have not just gone to the plant that the civet was eating from? Do you think you would have discovered Kopi Luwak if you were in that position?
I can't say that I source my beans based on animals passing it through their digestive system.
Right.
That wasn't as strong of a no as I thought it would have been.
Right, yeah.
That's a tentative, probably not, but maybe.
Depends on what other coffee was available, Adam.
I can tell you, my theory is, I've already got a theory about this, how it happened. It happens in Indonesia. There's a lot of very poor people in Indonesia, and they probably enjoy coffee, and they realize that, wow, these cats leave behind a lot of coffee, and if you brush it off a bit, roast it up, it's basically free coffee. What they didn't realize is they were getting into something that was going to be a marketing, dynamite, and wound up being very expensive coffee. So that's my theory. My theory is poor people found it, and it was an economic thing, and they got marketing behind it. That's what I'm going with.
Marketing counts for a lot.
Yeah.
It's like, is it diamonds? Like, diamonds really are not rare at all, but was it De Beers, I think?
That's what I've heard.
And this 2-month salary thing, who came up with that? What a terrible idea.
No kidding.
So
We're going all over with this.
Right.
But yeah, I disagree with that also. 2 months, too much. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that's, they saw what was happening. It's so exotic. It's such a weird thing, and it's drinkable, and the people who tried it, I'm like, it actually drinks well as coffee. And I think we were hearing this, the green coffee is basically indestructible, right? How long can you hang on to coffee before you roast it?
Over a year.
Wow, and that's crazy.
I've been told indefinitely. Is that not true? That pretty much that a green bean will keep, if you have it sealed up and put away until you roast it, it's shelf stable.
It's hard to prove the indefinitely part.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. We need to find some beans like in King Tut's tomb or something and try and roast those up, huh?
Yeah, well, when I get to the end of my life, I'll let you know.
Yeah, you're not holding them 10 years at Apotheos before you roast them, right?
No.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple weeks tops.
We've talked some about coffee prep and how we go that in beers. Today we've drank some that was just a hot brew method. Do you have what you consider your favorite or the best method to get the best flavor out of a coffee when you brew it?
When you brew it? Well, I'm team French press.
Okay.
So a lot of people do not share that sentiment. The standard now is people are more into pour-over coffee, but I will always be team French press.
Okay. I have an AeroPress that I use at
I'm
home.
so sorry.
That's not a fan of the AeroPress. Huh? Okay. All right. Fair enough,
If
man.
you do
Taking
it
shots
right,
at me.
I'm a fan of that. I think that the right way to prepare the coffee depends on the type of coffee you're trying to prepare. Like, do you ever switch it up and say, hey, this is definitely a coffee that needs to be French pressed, or maybe this is definitely a coffee that needs to be poured over?
I do think that certain coffees speak better with different brewing methods, for sure. Me personally, I've always been a fan of cold brew coffee, and French press is a very similar brewing method to cold brew coffee. So those just resonate with me.
Because it kind of boils down to, is it immersion, or are we like filtering through, are we dripping through? And I've watched a few coffee videos in my time, and I saw some nerds talking about how big of a difference there is in preparing the two. And I've known from my own experience with it how different the same coffee works in different preparations. So what does a French press do that brings out the best in coffee, do you think?
Well, those oils that are present in the coffee stay in the coffee. It's not like a pour over or brewed coffee where the water rinses over the grounds. Think of like rocks at the bottom of a waterfall.
Oh, okay. You're extracting a lot more when you're pouring over, especially at heat, right?
I would argue less, because you're not actually able to get those oils to stay melted in the brew. Notice, like at the end of a French press, you always have that sediment that's at the bottom. It's because you're keeping everything in there. The filter isn't holding anything back.
So and for those at home, that you can French press your beer as well. Take you a stout, get you a stout. And seriously, there's ways. I don't remember if we talked about this on the show or if this was on the break, but get you a French press, get you a big imperial stout or any other beer that you want to. Throw you some coffee beans in there, ground coffee, vanilla beans, Brian.
Sure.
Habanero peppers.
Oh, absolutely.
Whatever you want to do. We did one. We used chips from a Jack Daniel's barrel, I think.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. And barrel
in a French
staves.
press.
In a French press.
Yeah.
Or you can get with a stout, with an imperial stout that we brewed. So.
And homebrew shops have the toasted oak cubes, so you could use those too. Yeah, you would extract some flavor out of that for sure.
But that's a whole new level of fancy, fellas.
Yeah, it's a fun way to play around with getting these flavors into your beer to check out, see what you like, and it works really well. Remember when Randall's?
Yeah, I was just thinking
the cool thing. You'd go to the bar and they would Randall over fruit or hops or different things like that.
Can we call that a scandal just because it rhymes with it and that sounds funny?
I like it.
Okay, it's officially a scandal, right?
No, I'm gonna oppose.
Are you gonna oppose?
I'm gonna count a vote opposed. Yeah, I think you're the tiebreaker.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, abstain. So we're undecided on calling it a scandal there. Absolutely. Well, guys, Apotheos Roastery, Kennesaw, Georgia. We've talked coffee and beers and coffee beers. We've tried quite a few today. I think we still actually have a few left.
I think we're going to hang out for a bit and try a couple more.
We've done pretty good on getting through them. So you've mentioned it's apotheosroastery.com.
That's right.
That'll give you the information on that. And you have other locations besides here in Kennesaw.
That's
correct?
right. There's the Coffee House in Candler Park and Coffee House in Virginia Highlands.
This is Atlanta,
This
correct?
is Atlanta, that's correct. And then Common Grounds Coffee Shop is being built right here in downtown Kennesaw.
Okay.
But come by the roastery, Monday through Friday. We're here every day except we're not on the weekends. It's a lot like visiting a brewery.
Do you have any locations outside of Georgia right now?
No, sir.
Yeah. But you can get the coffee subscription anywhere.
That's right.
Is that right?
That's right. Anywhere where you have an internet connection.
Okay. So that'd be good. Check it out. So what's been your favorite beer today, Adam?
I think my favorite beer is yet to be opened. I think it's going to be the Founders 2017 KBS.
Okay.
Looking forward to that.
How about yours, Jason? What's been your favorite?
What was this guy?
Oh, the
barrel and bean.
Yeah, the barrel and bean.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Brian,
I like that a lot. Boy, that's tough. I still probably favor the Frangelic Mountain Brown. It's nostalgic, but it's just such a great flavor. But that last one that we just opened up, the Funky Buddha, the Wide Awake It's Morning.
That's good, isn't it?
That's really tasty too, man. It's tough, man. It's a really tough thing.
There really hadn't been a bad one.
What about you, Tim?
Not, yes.
Did you say
there's
what
not
your
a bad one on the table?
That's
is there,
right.
Adam?
Not a bad one.
Not anymore. Did you say what your favorite was, Tim?
I think I'll tell you what. Regular coffee probably would have got that vote from me, but the one we had was a little
old. Yeah.
But I really liked the Frangelic Mountain Brown from Founders. That was really nice.
Sure.
So good stuff, guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Sharing your knowledge. We really appreciate it. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show. Join us next week as we talk with Social Fox Brewing. We are Beer Guys Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers.